The weirdest GDP report ever. The economy grew 3%, but mainly because imports collapsed. Alas, investment fell too. And this headline here from the Wall Street Journal, right? The weirdest GDP report ever captures this insane, crazy timeline that we're on. Trump tweets out, tariffs go up. Trump tweets out, tariffs go down. You never know what the heck the guy's going to do. It's just we're run on the whims of a tweeter toddler guy. Then today, Fed Powell has to come out and make a speech and a talk about where the Fed rate's going to be. And this is the headline: Fed holds rates steady despite Trump calls for lower borrowing costs. And they did have a couple people in the Fed dissent, but they're not cutting rates. They're going to hold it steady because Trump is so unstable, and we're still seeing the effects of tariffs go through the economy. What's interesting is with these, Trumpers, they gaslight you all the time, right? So first they tell you that, hey, foreign countries are going to pay the tariffs, and then now they're floating, which is a lie, and now they're floating that you're going to get a tariff rebate. So this was the bill that we talked about yesterday. Senator Josh Hawley introduced his bill to send tariff rebate checks to Americans, right? So none of it really makes sense. And now they're trying to target these rebate checks. Now listen to this.
So this is not going to the hedge fund managers or all the Biden voters. This is not going to the Wall Street kingpins. They don't need any of it. This is going to the Trump blue collar voters, the people who Joe Biden crushed, the people who didn't get a raise under Joe Biden for 4 long years, the people who cannot afford their gas because Joe Biden shut down our energy, who can't afford their groceries because Joe Biden drove up the price of everything. And it is a message from us to them, from Trump to these folks, that he is here to deliver for them. I got the idea from the president. I mean, the president said maybe we ought to do a little rebate. Great idea. It tells our people, the working people, that we are here for you, and these policies are going to benefit them. And we're in it for the long haul. These Trump policies are here to stay.
Okay, so I guess the Trump policies are here to stay, and that's why we have the weirdest GDP report ever. Then they say, hey, we're going to give you a stimmy check, basically, but we're only going to send it to Trump voters. Who are these people? That's why the markets are just like, what? S&P 500 closes down lower. Dow drops more than 150 points as Powell signals Fed isn't ready to cut rates. So let's see what Fed Powell has to say.
My colleagues and I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Despite heightened uncertainty, the economy is still in a solid position. The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but has been running somewhat above our 2% longer run objective. In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged. The risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation appear to have risen, and we believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments.
All right, so that's from Powell. It was strange. He's clearing his throat, talking about unemployment or inflation. Basically, I don't think any of this stuff looks good, to be frank. However, Trump's going to always tell you that everything is awesome. There's no inflation. Your gas prices are down. And I'm giving you a different point of view, so listen to this.
If you look at fuel, $2.35 a gallon, a lot of that. But we actually had 4 states where it's down $1.99. $1.99 as opposed to $3.50, $4, and it went up a lot higher than that. It almost feels like an unforced error. If you think inflation I've already taken care of, prices are way down for everything, groceries.
So according to Trump, prices are way down. Groceries, it's totally fine. You're all doing great. And I guess gas is $1.99 according to Trump.
I do not think we're going to be able to see by September how tariffs are infiltrating inflation. It's probably a late 2025 story. And at the end of the day, this is going to come down to, is it a demand destruction story? Is the U.S. going to slow down materially? Then you can have big rate cuts. Or is there a lot of inflation? And that is not related to who is Fed chair. That's related to the economy and trade policy.
And you'll notice a pattern as we go through all this stuff. It's basically all due to the uncertainty of the Trump policy and the numbers that just don't add up. And a Congress that needs to be calling him out more because, frankly, he's way overstepping his bounds and doing it in ways that are hurting not only just the USA, but hurting the world. And so it's interesting when you'll see it reflected in the economic news, the financial news, political news, etc.
There could be a cliff effect, but I don't think it's a cliff effect where all of a sudden you
What's
wake
a
up.
cliff effect?
Meaning, like, all of a sudden you wake up one day and you realize, like, okay, inflation suddenly arrived here. It's usually a progression. This progression towards higher inflation may be happening right now, but the rate of change is going to matter a lot. How quickly is inflation moving higher, and how quickly is the unemployment or the employment situation deteriorating?
Right. So we're talking about jobs, we're talking about inflation. It seems to be indicating that way where inflation is going to go up and hiring is going to slow. I've seen it several places. You also hear it from various people's stories. And in any of these things, I always tell you guys the same stuff. Don't let people necessarily tell you how you feel or tell you your situation. You know yourself. Basically, why you watch this kind of stuff is you want to see sort of what is the overall macro picture, right? Because you know your own situation, and then you start to hear from other people in the community as we talk about this stuff all the time, or hear from other people in other countries. You'll get a fuller picture of what's going on. Don't let the Trump people gaslight you and tell you how you feel. Don't let them tell you like, "Hey, gas is $2. Trust me," right? It's like what are you talking about, right? You know your own situation.
Likewise, so we have a lot of money coming in, and we have no inflation, and we're very strong, and we should be lowering the rates. Each point that this gentleman keeps up costs us $365 billion a year. Think of that. 1 point, $365 billion. If you bring it down a point, we save 365. We should be the lowest interest rate, and we're not. We're 38, number 38.
So basically, we're in deficit spending, so Trump's numbers don't add up. We're adding to the national debt. And he's just going to try to blame it all on Powell when it's really Trump. And so that's Trump. He's always going to try to blame someone else. It's the Fed's fault. It's Biden's fault. It's Obama's fault, etc. Let's read some details of this stuff. The weirdest GDP report ever. Okay. This may be the weirdest GDP report ever. The top line growth number looks good. Okay. And the White House naturally touted it. So they're going to be saying, hey, guys, we're going awesome, 3% to GDP. This reverses the 0.5% decline in GDP in the first quarter, which was largely explained by a surge of imports as businesses tried to front run the anticipated tariff barrage. Growth in the first half was a mediocre 1.2%. So the reason why you're getting these different numbers is we all knew that the tariffs were coming. So a lot of companies came in and they bought a whole bunch of stuff from other countries to get in front of the tariffs. The same way that if you went out and you made a car purchase or an appliance purchase or any sort of large purchase because you knew the tariffs were coming, you're like, okay, I better buy stuff before prices go up. Everyone knew. And so that's why you get this crazy skew. Here's more. The crazy swings in imports shows how much Mr. Trump's up and down trade policies have disrupted business decisions and left companies scrambling to adapt. This seems to have a negative effect on private domestic investment, which fell 15.6% in the second quarter after a surge in the first. Also more striking are the second quarter report's wild internal details. Net exports, right? So exports minus imports, added a remarkable 4.99% to GDP as imports fell 30.3%, right? That's the key. Imports fell 30.3%. Imports subtract from the growth in the national accounts because the GDP measures domestic production. Imports are produced overseas. But imports are still crucial to the U.S. economic well-being because the consumers buy them and businesses use them as inputs for what they produce and often export. And so again, you'll see because of Trump's policies, you have businesses, consumers, etc., do things they wouldn't normally do. And the best way to look at the numbers of GDP is to take a look at the first quarter and the second quarter together to give you a fuller picture. On top of that, things keep changing. Here's another one. Donald Trump announces 25% tariffs on India, then says talks continuing. What does that even mean, right? It's 25%, so it could be higher, it could be lower. This captures like the world that we're in. And not just India, you got Brazil. U.S. adds 40% tariff on Brazil and places a sanction on judge trying a Bolsonaro. And when you read this stuff, okay, so is that all things from Brazil? Is it just some things from Brazil? What's going on with that? And often changes, right? When you get the details of these things. And then after you get the details, it could change the next day. It's completely unstable.
And I think the inflation numbers are going to get a good deal worse between now and the September meeting because we've got two reports. what's happening is we haven't any historical experience of tariff increases of this magnitude. And by the way, by Friday, we think the aggregate average tariff rate is going to be close to 20%. So that's an enormous increase since the start of the year. What we know is the tariff revenue is coming in. So that tells, and we know that import prices aren't changing. So that tells you it's not being paid by foreign producers. So it's either going to hit corporate profits in the U.S. or it's going to hit consumers. My bet is eventually most of it's going to hit consumers. And I think that's going to become clearer over the next few months, which makes it harder for the Fed to justify any rate cut in September.
So you're pretty squarely in the tariffs are going to be inflationary in some way camp.
Yeah, they will be inflationary. The problem is, and the thing that I think people aren't focusing on is, if you look at that big, the OBBBA, that has got a lot of fiscal stimulus stuck into the first half of next year because of income tax refunds. So you're going to get this big wave of sugar hitting the economy in the first half of next year. So if you get higher inflation at the end of this year because of tariffs, that could be sustained into early next year because of the reconciliation bill. So why do you want to cut rates now? I mean, we're supposed to be trying to get to 2% inflation.
I don't know.
Right? I don't know. I mean, that's how I feel too. And effectively, Trump is just off in crazy land. And that's who they are. And if you don't believe that you're going to pay higher prices, I talked about this yesterday, I'll show it again. Procter & Gamble to increase U.S. prices to counter the $1 billion tariff costs, right? So companies are going to raise prices. Of course, they're going to pass the cost on you. But I know it may be obvious, you're watching channel, you know this stuff already. However, there's a lot of people that don't, unfortunately. And we need to tell them the truth about this stuff. This is what Powell had to say, because Trump's going to still blame him. What do you think, Powell? What do you think about what Trump's saying about you?
President Trump has obviously invoked your name a lot. He has personally pressured you. Are you concerned the way that conduct might impact the Fed's independence going forward?
I'll just say that, I think that having an independent central bank has been an institutional arrangement that has served the public well. And as long as it serves the public well, it should continue and be respected. If it didn't serve the public well, then it wouldn't be something that we should just automatically defend. But what it gives us and other central banks, what it gives you is the ability to make these very challenging decisions that in ways that are focused on the data and the evolving outlook, the balance of risks and all the things we talk about, and not political factors. And so governments all over the advanced economy world have chosen to put a little bit of distance between direct political control of those decisions and the decision makers. So if you were not to have that, there would be a great temptation, of course, to use interest rates to affect elections, for example. And that's something that we don't want to do. So I think that's pretty widely understood. Certainly it is in Congress. And I think it's very important.
That's what Fed Chair Powell had to say in response to, hey, is Trump going to fire you? What do you think about the Trump pressure, this kind of things? And we need an independent Fed. You just look at the data. That's what it looks like, be it inflation, jobs, consumer sentiment, all that stuff. And where are we going to go? This is the Trump people. I just want to show you different points of view. They're going to make the case that, oh, Trump is right. Everyone is wrong, right? There's no inflation, guys. You're all rich. This is also Fox News. See what they have to say here.
3% in second quarter is better than expected. Yet you've got a New York Times headline that says the U.S. economy slowed in the first half of 2025 as tariffs scrambled data. Make sense of this for me.
How do you, I don't know people that do, but how can you take the New York Times seriously? Okay, we had a small decline in the first quarter and then a 3% print this quarter, the first quarter that Trump's been president. We've had tariffs almost the entire time. How did tariffs scramble data?
I want to show the trick that they do here when they show markets. They show it for the month, not for what's happening today as the market reacts live, right? So they play little tricks with you.
And I just think it's really hard for people to admit they're wrong.
I agree. It's hard for you to admit you're wrong. But they change the numbers to this is the markets this year, right? So they're all trying to gaslight you.
And when it comes to Trump, it's almost impossible for everybody, except for like Bill Maher, who basically was out the other day saying I was completely wrong about this. Right. Well, almost everybody was completely wrong about what these tariffs are going to do. This GDP report, this is a good number, but it's in the past. I think the future is only going to get better. And like when you talk about what's gone underreported, in my opinion, is Lee Zeldin and the endangerment finding. The Obama administration ran a quick study. And
so I just want to give you different opinions on this stuff. And Fox News are perfectly frank. When you understand these things, you'll realize, wow, they really are dumb over there. And they really are a bunch of liars. But the basic gist of it is whenever they go to, it's Obama's fault, it's Biden's fault, oh, and don't forget about Hillary, then they're just making crap up at that point. This is what the headline is, what they talked about. And normally when you do these things, you just have honest discussions with people. Okay, so what's going on? U.S. economy slowed in the first half of 2025 as tariffs scrambled data. Okay, then the next question would be, okay, so how did it scramble data? But both those figures were skewed in opposite directions, talking about trade data, by big swings in trade and inventories caused by President Trump's ever-shifting tariff policies. Taken as a whole, the data from the first 6 months of the year tell a more consistent story of anemic, though positive, economic growth. And then you'll have this chart here that basically, again, everyone knew that the Trump tariffs were going to take effect. So you're buying a whole bunch of stuff to bring into the country before you get hit by the tariffs. Tariffs are now in, and then basically imports fall by 30%. That's what we're looking at here. And then you were talking about as well as spending investment is down too. Then you got this, you have companies that will come out and report that they're losing. Ford swings to loss as costs from recalls and Trump tariffs pile up, right? Companies have to pay this thing and they're ultimately going to pass it on to you. And I guess Ford here is getting a line of credit. Ford reports a surprise quarterly loss stemming from costs of recalling nearly 700,000 vehicles and an $800 million headwind from Trump's tariffs. The Detroit car maker became the latest company swept in U.S. president's tariff war turmoil, disclosing that it had secured a $3 billion credit line as well as a $1 billion UK export financing rate to prepare for rising costs and cash pressures. So it sounds like Ford not doing so great. So that's what's going on today. That was the GDP report. That's the Fed's decision. And that's what the Trumpers are saying. And what do you think? I want to hear comments down below. And I'll catch you all in the next video.